next to me and Matchbox cars under my feet. And, you know, the shul printer did that and I look awesome. But I think I'm going to be a lot harder on the crew here because it's not rocket science. It's really just taking a minute and like getting a buddy and saying, enough, we're done. We don't have to anymore. And I have like a whole, I can pull heartstrings. Do you want me to pull heartstrings? I can pull heartstrings. But, all right, so after all this DC Mikvah news, I made myself nuts. There was one weekend in particular when there were 3, you know, women reclaiming the Mikvah sessions going on, and obviously in my Mikvah fanaticism, I went to all 3 of them. The first one was a support group type thing where women were sitting around going, woe is me, how can I go back to the Mikvah? This was the last straw, it's gonna be total torture. Then there was the conservative shul at Addis Israel. Their Mikvah put on a session where we spent 2 hours learning about ways to make your Mikvah experience more personally meaningful. And the last was a pretty big name Mikvah speaker from out of town who was talking to us about the gift that Mikvah was to her marriage and how we shouldn't overlook the beauty in the mitzvah despite the ugliness of the newspaper headlines. And I'll never forget, during the Q&A, a woman got up in tears saying, I can't, I don't know how, I feel so violated, I cannot go back. And the speaker calmly looked at this tearful woman and said, mitzvahs are supposed to be hard. Whoever told you it would be easy? Is it easy to fast on Yom Kippur? And I'm sorry. I couldn't. I had just come from another shul where they were trying to make Mikvah beautiful. They put in a little bit of an effort, not that much. It was 2 hours of us coming together and brainstorming and looking at different tikkunim and looking at whatever it was. It was like a brain space to say, hey, this could be nice. And this other response, she didn't even try. The example even of Yom Kippur was, in my opinion, a ridiculous one because the rabbis themselves bend over backwards to help us fast. Go home, rest if you can't stay in shul, drink a cheekful every couple of minutes. Let me help you make this mitzvah possible. And so, mikvah doesn't have to be hard. We just have to try. And please, like really, I'm going to say to you guys, let's not be satisfied with renovations and marble hallways and new fixtures. Sure, that's lovely, but we are not that superficial. We deserve more, and we just need a little effort being made. And so, my charge to everybody here, Naomi is like very calm and professional about this, and I'm just like, no, you guys are nuts, you're in this room, let's make things different. I need you guys to go home and make one small change. Just one thing different. Stop tolerating the thing that you hate about Mikvah, the reason that you came in this room. Just go home and do something different and don't care about the Mikvah lady who's standing at the door. Just claim it for yourself. You can insist on taking some time alone in the Mikvah. You can bring your own tefillah to say. You can donate perfumes to share to your Mikvah. You can have a conversation at the Shabbat lunch table about what you would imagine for your town. This whole thing came from my being nuts and pushing hard to make things happen. And I'm not saying that the Adam Center is going to work for everybody. I don't even know if it's going to work for my town. But we're just trying, and we're listening, and we're asking for feedback, and we're talking about it. I'll talk about it all day with anybody. But we're just not staying stagnant. So my personal motivation in all of this has been my daughter. And I want her to have a different experience of Mikvah than I did. But here's the kicker. I don't know where she's going to live when she grows up. She thinks she's going to grow up and raise her family in her purple bedroom. I'm not sure that's going to stay. But that means that I'm stuck being dependent on the rest of you to help me. Your community Mikvah is different. And unfortunately for you, I am known for having very high standards and being very demanding. So let this not be a theoretical conversation. Let this not be a wish list. Let this be a practical one. What will you do when you go home from here today to make the experience different for you, for your friends, for your neighbor, for your grandmother, for whoever? And I love having these conversations of brainstorming brainstorming how to make things happen. Because honestly, we need to be done waiting for the leadership. Change is going to happen from the ground up.
What Ariel said about everybody making change in their communities, but I also do really believe in change on the individual level, because sometimes we can't bring a Supreme Court case, and sometimes we can't change everything. And sometimes real change can happen in our own interactions and attitudes. And I think that I just want to throw out, in terms of how we can change our experience, one is to be mindful when we go to the mikvah of where we are, who we are, where we are in our relationship. And my plane has an English version of something called Sheva Kavanot. The Eden Center has a Hebrew version of Sheva Kavanot, which gives a focus to your time in the mikvah and things to be thankful for. And I really think that being mindful in your experience can help every single person when you go. And on the relationship level, I also want to encourage that everybody ask themselves in their relationship, what would make mikvah and taharat hamishpacha observance better for me in my relationship? Would that be that my husband be a partner in a different way? I mean, we can't all have husbands who are filling our house with balloons, but what would make it more of a shared experience? What would make it more positive? I think that's a very important question that we can ask ourselves, and in our relationship, see where we can go in addition to the community level.
We have a few minutes. There's so many questions, and I know for sure we won't get to all of them, so please, our panelists are here and happy to talk with you afterwards. But there's a common trope that's going through a lot of these questions, which has to do with, which goes something like this. That's very nice, you run your own mikvah. But what about those of us who have in some people's words, it was a yeshivish mikvah, or are in a small community, or are forced to immerse at a mikvah that doesn't fit my ideology? Can I speak up to the mikvah attendant? Should I make space for myself? Or how do you even start a conversation in a community where the attitude is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? So what can you tell people in terms of where to start? Some of what you said already addressed this in terms of starting with your own practice, with making it maybe more mindful, or finding someone else who's like-minded. But what else can you say to someone who's not in a place of control, but who wants to make changes? You can kind of bat it around.
I think that none of us are by ourselves, and that if we want to make change, there are so many levels on which to make change. You can find a few friends who feel like-minded and want to make change. You can certainly, and I believe it's extremely important to do it with great respect, you can certainly speak to the mikvah lady and let her know what your feelings are, how you would like to be respected, even to the little things of, it's a little bit different in the Israeli reality, but it's possible to say to a mikvah lady, I don't want you to put a towel over my head, I'm okay with that. It's possible to say to a mikvah lady, please stay out of the room until I'm in the water, or you can try now to say, I don't want you to be in the mikvah while I immerse. You can say, please could you hold up this towel until I'm in the water. You can turn around so that you are not facing the mikvah lady, so that you feel more privacy. If that mikvah, even in a yeshivish setting, there are practical things that you can do, and you can encourage your friends, and you can speak to other people. And I'm sure that in whatever community each of you live in, there are other people who feel like you, even if sometimes it doesn't feel like that. And I think that the most important thing is having conversation, because those yeshivish women or whoever else lives in your community may also not have ever had the conversation, but there may be a lot of people feeling like you. In fact, I want to say that one time we had a conversation with a group of mikvah ladies, and the issue of asking for permission came up. Because we always tell every mikvah lady, you have to ask a person, how can I be helpful to you? Not invasive, but facilitating the experience. And some of the mikvah ladies were, I don't need to ask for permission, this is my job. And one of the mikvah ladies who had a shaved head with a black mikvah that covered everything, she was like the most Haredi of Haredi women, said, I feel better when somebody asks my permission. I want somebody to ask permission to take the hair off your back before she does it. And everybody else all of a sudden looked up and said, oh goodness, okay, you're right. And having the conversation with other people in the room creates change.
Obviously agree. But I also recognize that I am totally lucky that I have this situation, and please, like, email, call, whatever. I would love to brainstorm with how to really make change. If you're into it, let's do this. I'm genuine and so serious. I will make time to figure out what would work, what can we try, what have we done. And I think that part of it is this fear of having conversation and challenging authority, especially when you're standing naked in a bathrobe in a very vulnerable position for yourself. Right there, you're asking for something because you're uncomfortable. How much more uncomfortable can it be? So it's either steeling yourself and saying, I'm going to say this out loud today. I'm going to write a note and hand it to her beforehand, and we'll have a conversation after. I'm going to talk to my Rebbitzin. I'm going to talk to my friend. Nobody talks about this. I'm like obnoxious in that I talk about my fault all the time to anyone who will listen. This is like my dream come true. But just talking about it means that you can find that you're not alone in the discomfort that you're having, find solidarity, and then think about how to approach your community together.
I want to add, we are lucky that we have here Ilana Gadish, who has told me that if you live in Manhattan and have a suggestion about the Upper West Side Mikvah or the Fifth Avenue Mikvah, email her at nycoxs@gmail.com or speak to her in person right here, right now, after this session. And I want to echo the feeling here that, you know, I sort of have had this experience of being able to do whatever I wanted because I ran the mikvah along with Rachel O'Patton, I have to give you a shout out, when we were in Chicago together. And we created kind of a mini Mein Chaim feeling at an Orthodox mikvah. And now I'm just another mikvah user who happens to also teach brides and grooms. And I think the word that came up that is the key word is the word authority. This session is about a new model in mikvah leadership. And can each of us feel that we have authority over our own immersion? If I have the authority over my immersion, I can feel empowered to do something, even if it's something small, even if it's bringing my own tefillah, or even if it's saying, I need a few extra minutes in the water, would you mind stepping aside? Or not, maybe it's just talking about it with a friend, can you come with me and be with me in the waiting room? When I speak to my brides, I tell them, it is your immersion. It is your immersion, because I don't know what's going to happen in that room. I don't know what that mikvah attendant is or isn't going to say. I don't know how supported they're going to feel. But there's something that can be an internal work that we can each do, and then if we do it together in small conversations, it can be a sea change, no pun intended. All the water puns are fair game in this field. And so, you know, I go through this myself also. Do I argue with her? Do I not? I know this is allowed, but you know, this mikvah attendant usually is even not so educated, just doing what she's told to do. So, you know, to kind of fine-tune our internal monologues, to calm ourselves, to center ourselves, and to know that we own this experience in whatever we didn't get to, that were mentioned here on the cards. Conversion we didn't get to talk about. We're going to have to end the question of transgender in the mikvah, and Orthodox versus non-Orthodox. There are a lot of other issues that need to be addressed. Our time is over and we have to end. But let this be the beginning of many new conversations. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
I definitely want to invite everybody to be in conversation with us, to invite the Eden Center to help your community create a program that is appropriate for your community. And really, we both want to be resources, so anybody who wants to be in touch, please do.